Hi, this is Krista at The Secret Yarnery. Today we are making this super easy, simple, wide granny square border. This border adds about 3.5 inches per side, so 7 inches taller and 7 inches wider for your blanket. So that's 18 centimeters wider and 18. That's the width of your border just by adding more rows or reducing the rows here in whatever color you're using around the edge, or again, whatever color you used to match the join. And this border goes on any granny square blanket at all, any type of granny square or any type of blanket that has a multiple of 3 for your stitches. If you'd like to follow along with a written pattern, it's available over on my website, secretyarnery.com. And you don't have to worry about being able to read a pattern. All of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I'm speaking in this video. This is an amazing border. It is super easy to do and adds a great detail to your blanket without being too fancy. It's still nice and simple, but it really does add a lot of size and a lot of detail to your finished blanket. It can also be done with any sort of granny squares at all. It doesn't have to be sunflower. It could be regular, mitered, sunburst, anything at all, any granny square blanket. So feel free to mix and match and put this border on any blanket that you like. You'll need 3 colors of yarn for your border. I'm using the color I use to join, so whatever color you use to join your granny squares, that'll be this color here. I'm using my neutral color for the edge just to pull out this main color right here. And then I just added white. Now you could use 3 colors from your blanket to put around the edge. You could use anything you like. This is just what I did for mine. So 3 colors, 1 will be your fat border, 1 will highlight your join, and 1 will be your finished edge. I'm using Saver from Ice Yarns. It's just whatever yarn matches your blanket. But for the Saver and for my granny square blanket, I'm using a 6mm crochet hook. You will also need a pair of scissors and a needle for sewing in your ends. So let's get started. To start the super easy wide granny square blanket border, we're just going to start in a corner. We want to be working into the back. So working into the back of our blanket, find any corner space and just pop your hook in. Loop of yarn on your hook, whatever you're using for the width of your blanket, what's going to add the most size to your blanket. So I'm just using this white. So loop of your new color on your hook, bring it through, and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the top edge of your work, and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. So this counts as our first single crochet, and chain 2. Into this next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, 1, 2. Into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2. Into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2. If your granny squares are made with a chain in between your sets of 3 double crochets, you can do a chain 3 instead of a chain 2. Now you can pause the video and keep working along, doing a chain 2, 1, 2, and a single crochet into the space, all the way along this edge of your blanket, and I'll meet you when you get to this corner space. When you get to your corner space, 1 single crochet, chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. Rotate your work a little bit so we can start working along the next edge of our blanket, and 1 single crochet into that same space. 1 single crochet. So that is our corner space. That's what we're going to be doing for corners. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and single crochet into the next space. So you can pause the video and keep working along. Single crochet into the space, chain 2, and single crochet into the space, all the way along until you reach your corner. Corners, single crochet, chain 3, and single crochet into the same corner space. So pause the video, keep working all the way around, and I'll meet you when you get back to where we started. Now don't worry if your blanket is all curled up and looks really, really tight, like we don't have enough stitches. We do. This little row of chain and single crochet is going to help our blanket lay nice and flat. So instead of our granny squares taking the weight and the stress of being a blanket, this little row of chain and single crochet is going to give it that strength to stay nice and flat and nice and true as the blanket is used and as a blanket ages. So this is the trick to having a long-lasting blanket that stays in shape with a gorgeous border. So don't worry about it being really tight. It will relax. I promise you are doing it absolutely correct. Are you enjoying yourself? Go ahead and hit this button under this video right now so you don't miss out on any more fun content just like this. When you get closer to your corner space, just do your single crochet and chain 2 like usual. Do a chain 1. And I'm going to join with a half double crochet. So wrap your yarn and into the center of this first stitch, just in between those legs, that's where I'm going to make my stitch. So I'm going to join with a half double crochet. So wrap your yarn into the legs of that first stitch, 1 half double crochet to join, and that leaves us right in the corner or the center of that corner. So chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn your work. Into this first space, right where we are, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. So that counts as our first granny square or set of granny stitches. Into the next space down here, into that chain 2 space, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. And now into each chain 2 space all the way along this side of your blanket, 3 double crochets into each. 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And now you can pause the video and just keep working along. 3 double crochets into each space, all the way along your side, and I'll meet you when we get to our corner. And now again, for your sides, if you have done a chain in between your sets of 3, you can do that chain again for your border. So however you did your granny squares, you can use that same formula for these squares. I don't do a chain between my granny square stitches, so that's why I don't do a chain in here in between these ones. When you reach your corner, just do your regular granny square corners. So 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. So there's 1, 2, and 3, chain 2, and 3 more double crochets into that same corner space. 1, 2, and 3. So now pause the video and keep working along, and I'll meet you when we get back to where we started. When you get back to where you started, 3 double crochets to finish off that first corner. Into that same corner space, there's 1, 2, and 3. And now we're going to join with a chain 1 and a single crochet to the top of this chain 3 to join. We want 2 strands of that stitch on the top of our hook. So 1 single crochet to join. That leaves us in the center of our corner again. I just hold it open with my finger just like that. And chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn your work. Now we're turning our work so that our work stays flat and our border doesn't curl up. It'll look nice and flat and straight if we just turn our work for the border. That's also why we're working into the back of our work for our first row, to keep our border nice and flat and stop it from curling. So into this same corner space, we're going to do the exact same thing as the row below. So starting with 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, And now work your way around 3 double crochets into each space, corners of 3 double crochets, chain 2 and 3 double crochets. So pause the video, work all the way around twice, and I'll meet you back when we're finishing our 3rd round. When you get back to your corner space, do your last 3 double crochets into the same corner where we started. So 3 double crochets to finish. 1, 2, and 3. And now I'm finished with this color here. If you want to keep going, you can make your border with this color as wide as you'd like yours to be. So to finish off, chain 2 and slip stitch into the top of that chain 3 to join, making sure you get 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook. So slip stitch to join, chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up, in your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. And that finishes our first color. To start your second color, turn your work. We want to be working in to the back of our work, and find a corner that we haven't joined our yarn in. Pop your hook into that corner space, loop of your next color on your hook. So I'm using the same color I did to join my granny squares. So loop of yarn on your hook, bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the top edge of your work, and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Now into this next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, 1 and 2, and 1 single crochet into the next space. Now if you did chains in between your granny stitches for your granny squares, you can do a chain 3. So chain 2 and single crochet into the space, chain 2 and single crochet into the space. So now you can pause the video and keep working along, doing your chain 2 and single crochet into each space all the way along, and I'll meet you when we get to our first corner. When you get close to your corner, do your single crochet and chain 2, just so we can reach that corner space, and single crochet into the corner, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, rotate your work, and into the same corner space, 1 single crochet. Just like that. So chain 2 and single crochet into the space all the way along your sides, and corners are single crochet, chain 3 and single crochet. So pause the video, get all the way around, and I'll meet you when we get back to where we started. When you get back to your corner, you've done your chain 2 and single crochet into that corner space where we started. And now we're going to join and keep going with the same yarn. So I'm going to chain 1, wrap my yarn and make 1 half double crochet right in between the legs of that very first stitch, right there. So wrap your yarn and 1 half double crochet to join. Just like that, and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now turn your work and make 2 double crochets into that same corner space that we just made. So there is 1, and here is 2. 3 double crochets into that next space. 1, 2, and 3. And 3 double crochets into each space all the way along, just like we did for our first row of white. When you reach the corner space, just do your regular corner, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3, chain 2, and 3 more double crochets into that same corner space. 1, 2, and 3. So now pause the video and keep working along. 3 double crochets into each space, and corners, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets all the way around, and I'll meet you when we get back to where we started. If you're enjoying this video, hit that thumbs up. When you get back to where you started, 3 double crochets into that first corner space, right where we began. So there's 1, 2, and 3, and I'm finished with this color. We're just doing the 1 row, so I'm going to join with a chain 2, 1, 2, and a slip stitch to the top of this chain 3 to join. So just pop your hook in, 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook, 1 slip stitch to join, chain 1 to secure your yarn, cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later, pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. And that finishes our second color. So turn your work, so working into the back of your blanket, find a corner where you have not joined your yarn, pop your hook in, loop of your new yarn on your hook, bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the top edge of your work, and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Now into this first space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, 1, 2, into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, and into the next space, 1 single crochet. So we're going to repeat the same row we did when we start each of our colors, just like we've been doing before. So chain 2 and single crochet into the space all the way along until you reach the corner. When you reach your corner, 1 single crochet into the corner space, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1 single crochet into the same corner space, just like that. Now pause the video and keep working along, chaining 2 and making 1 single crochet into the space all the way along. And when you reach your corners are single crochet, chain 3, and single crochet into the same corner space. So pause the video, work all the way around, and I will meet you when we get back to where we started. Don't worry about your blanket being all folded up like this. It will feel nice and tight on the edge, but it will relax and your blanket will be in great shape for its entire life. So don't worry if your blanket will not go out flat like that. Mine won't either, but it will later on. After your last single crochet and chain 2, into our corner space, 1 single crochet. I'm going to keep going with this yarn, so I'm going to do a chain 1, and then we're going to join with a half double crochet right here into the center of that first stitch, just in between those legs right there. So wrap your yarn, pop your hook in, 1 half double, and that leaves us right in the corner. It's a little bit larger. When we do our chains, we do a half double to join because that makes a larger space. That's what we want when we are doing our chain row. And chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. And turn your work. Into the same corner space, 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and into the next space, this next chain 2 space, 3 double crochets right into the space. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and 3 double crochets into the next space. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and 3 double crochets into the next space. 1, 2, and 3. So we're just doing the same row as before, but we're doing a chain 3 in between. It looks a little weird when we start out, all spaced out, but as you keep going, they will shrink together and look super, super cute. You're also welcome to turn these into picots if you want like an actual point coming out, but I like the evenness and the smoothness of just leaving the chain 3s, but that's an option if you want to do something a little bit different. So now pause the video and keep working along. 3 double crochets with a chain 3 into each space all the way along, and I'll meet you when we get to our corner. Into your corner space, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3, chain 1, and just pinch that chain, just so you keep track of it. Now chain 3, 1, 2, 3. So this we're going to turn into a picot, and because we're pinching that first chain, we know exactly where we're going to go for our picot. Right into this back loop, right there. So just slide your hook into that back loop of your 3rd chain. Make a picot. Rotate your blanket a little bit so we can work along our next side. Chain 1 and 3 double crochets into that same corner space. 1, 2, and 3. There's your corner. You also want to go back on the side you just finished and make sure you put in that chain 3 for each of these spaces in between. We didn't just go into straight granny square. So pause the video, keep working along. Corners, 3 double crochets, chain 1, picot, chain 1, 3 double crochets, and then just a regular 3 double crochet, chain 3 into each of these spaces all the way along each side. And I will meet you when we get back to where we started. When you get back to the corner where we started, after your last 3 double crochets, do your chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and into your corner space, do your 3 double crochets. Right into the same corner space where we started. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to picot into the 3rd chain from our hook. So 1, 2, 3, here's our 3rd chain from our hook, just working into that back loop if you can. So slip stitch to form your picot. And chain 1. Now you could slip stitch into the top of this chain 3 just like this. Just go in and do your slip stitch and a chain 1 to secure your yarn. That's absolutely fine. But I just want to show you a super easy invisible join. Don't be scared by it, you can totally do it, and then your corner of your border, the corner of your blanket, will look spectacular and no one will be able to tell where you began or where you finished. So instead of joining, just go ahead and cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in, and just pull it up through that last chain we made, just like that. Thread your needle. So now you want to look for the top of that chain 3, that last chain, and we want to be going in underneath both strands of that stitch, under both strands of the V, just like we would be crocheting into that stitch. So then just slide your needle through, and of course blunt end if you're using a sharp tip needle. Bring that through, and keep an eye on where it's coming from. So don't lose sight of this little stitch right there, but just pull it down a little bit. You don't want it really actually tight. You just want it a bit nearby. And then just flip that up a little bit so we can see where our yarn's coming from. And we want to put it right back down into the same stitch where it came from. Just like that. So we're going to pop our needle right back down where it came from. And then snug it down just so it looks like a stitch There, just like that. And then sew in your tails and you're finished. Now don't worry if your border looks a lot tighter than the center. See how it's like a bit wobbly in here and it looks tight out here? That is great. That's what we want over time. Your blanket, your border here, is going to take the brunt of the stretching and the pulling and the folding and the using, and your blanket is going to be absolutely perfectly flat for the whole duration of your blanket's life. So this is what we want. Don't worry about it. You can just give it a little tug and smooth it all out, and it will be perfectly straight, and it'll get better over time. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. I'm waiting for you in that video right there, and stay hooked. So I hope you enjoyed making this wide granny square border on your blanket. I'm waiting for you in that video right there, and stay hooked.